Compared to the teams that did make the playoffs in 2024, the Cardinals were a solid comp for those before their bye week, not so much after. What changed? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here, Donnie Druin, Sports Illustrated, my boy, friend of the podcast, joining me today. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button. You know the drill, everydayers. I'm happy that you're here. Let's expand the family this offseason. There's going to be a lot of bleep going on, and it's going to be fun. And with the playoffs going on, as you've watched over the last week and a half or so, I've peppered in just playoff comps. With the Cardinals, their deficiencies, what playoff teams are doing well. I'm going to bring Donnie in on the conversation. Is offensive line the number one need for the Cardinals going into the offseason? I talked about it yesterday. I gave my thoughts. I'm going to ask Donnie. And then let's do a barometer check with the coaching carousel in full swing. What's the barometer check for the Cardinals, the three-headed horseman, I guess? That was weird. Jonathan Gannon, Petzing and Nick Rallis. First full year with Kyler Murray. What does it look like moving forward? I'm going to pick Donnie's brain on all of it. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Donnie Druin, how the hell are you? One percenter, a member of the One Percenter Twitter club, first name, last name. It is not overlooked on this podcast, whether it be Mina Kimes or Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams, who is on ESPN LA, and Donnie Druin, one percenters.
I appreciate that, man. I take a lot of pride in being the most famous person with my last name. There's not a lot of Druins kind of roaming the earth. You take the small wins, you take the victories when you can get them, man. So very, very blessed to be part of that 1%.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic transition. You take the wins, you take the losses, you take the small ones. What we saw during the first half of the Cardinals season, we don't have to dive into it. 6-4 going to the bye week, completely different team coming out of it with all the momentum seemingly stopped in week 11. The fateful week that kind of changed everything. Pivoting to the playoff teams, okay? For me, interior defensive line, offensive line, pass rush, like the usual suspects are what make good teams great and what allows them to progress in the playoff race. For you, as you've been watching playoff games, what's one thing that sticks out that the playoff teams are doing well that the Cardinals didn't necessarily do well, namely the second part of the season?
Yeah, this is something that head coach Jonathan Gannon has harped on a lot, especially during that coveted second half stretch where things kind of fell apart. It's so simple, but it's so true. It's turnovers, Alex. Turnovers. The Cardinals turned the ball over far too often coming down to that second stretch of the season. And you look at the teams that are playing on conference championship weekend this Sunday, all four teams won the turnover battle last weekend. People can say whatever about turnovers being lucky. They can say whatever about, turnovers being like such a hit or miss stat. The fact is that if you take care of the ball and you force turnovers on the other end, more times than not, you're going to win. That's one of the very few key winning stats in the National Football League. If you take care of the rock and you take the ball away some, more times than not, you're going to come out with a win. Obviously, there's a ton of other factors. I really like how you brought up the interior defensive line, the pass rush ability to get after the passer. Almost more than anything, man, the teams that are playing right now found ways to win when they needed to last weekend. The Cardinals did that during the 4-game win streak. But a lot of people didn't like how they had to rely on Chad Ryland's leg for a handful of those wins. But ultimately, Kyler Murray put them in a position to win. They kicked the game-winning field goal. They made plays when they needed to, and that was not the case during the second half of the season. So turnovers and then just like showing up and like making more plays whenever the game was on the line. Those are my two biggest takeaways from what the Cardinals couldn't do and what the teams, four of them remaining, were able to do last weekend and obviously this weekend as well.
Yeah, it's the turnover thing's fascinating because the Cardinals didn't they weren't a frivolous team. They were far away from the Jameses of the world, and that's kind of to their detriment as well because it seemed like they were so conservative. On top of that, Kyler Murray would rather throw the ball into the dirt than try to you kind of want to see some more Wild West out of him. Just take a couple shots, let the playmakers make plays. If you throw a couple extra interceptions, so be it. I mean, you're throwing the ball down the field at least. Now, the problem with that was the Cardinals defense didn't provide as many turnovers to win turnover battles. Sure. I mean, we saw it peppered in throughout the year. We saw some interceptions here and there, but it wasn't something that, listen, the defense really needs to turn the ball over here to get the offensive ball back. There's no real okay, go get the ball kind of guy that the Cardinals have, and that's something that on top of that, as you mentioned, the Cardinals don't really have it's pretty telegraphed at this point that they're going to run the ball with James Conner and they're going to figure everything else out after that. With Saquon Barkley, everybody knows he's getting the ball and nobody can stop him because the offensive line is so good. And when you look at Jaden Daniels is so good in that system that it doesn't matter. He can make a play. He's got playmakers. He gives the opportunities to playmakers to make plays. So, yeah, I mean, it's something the Cardinals are behind. You're going into 2025 with that being the reintroduction to, hopefully relevance. And, the Jalen Carter thing, one quick thing, I'm getting chirped at about, well, the Cardinals should have taken Jalen Carter instead of Paris Johnson. No, they shouldn't.
No.
That's an important position in football. No. At the most position, even though he played right tackle first, the Cardinals made the right move 2 years ago. So, I mean, obviously things are going to be criticized after, but talk to me playoff wise, when you've been watching, and I know that, you cover the Cardinals, not the other teams that are in the playoffs, but how far away are the Cardinals? I'm happy that they're not in the playoffs because they would have been ousted immediately. It would have been embarrassing. Whoever they would have played, they're not ready. I think that they're further away than I thought. What about you?
I would agree. I still think they're close in the same respect, though. I do not think they are more than a handful of pieces away. I really, really don't. They're kind of in this weird purgatory for me to where they would have got bounced in the first round of the postseason if they had made it, but also they're not some Jeff Fisher Rams just stuck in mediocre team. I think that the potential is there for them to be very good. I do think there's a lot of really good pieces for them to do it, but this offseason is going to be so important, and getting another key defensive interior guy and getting an edge rusher and getting another weapon for Kyler Murray and getting protection for Kyler Murray. Those are all very, very big priorities for the Cardinals to do. And if they can do that, I do feel pretty good about their chances of becoming a postseason contender next year. But ultimately, there's a lot of issues that outside guys can't fix. Like Drew Petzing, Kyler Murray, and Jonathan Gannon need to lock themselves in a room and figure it out. Yeah. Figure out why the offense sputtered so inconsistently throughout 2024, because we saw the highs of it, we saw the lows of it. And if the Cardinals are going to go where they need to go, all three of them need to be better.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I'm going to ask you about that. I'm not going to bury the lead, but that's one of the main chunks of the last thing we're going to talk about. I'll tease it for you so you can think about it, because for those that don't know, these guys don't know what I'm going to ask them. They don't know what I'm going to talk to them about, because I think it's organic. I tell people, Donnie, that I don't edit my videos. I know how to. I've been in this space a long time, but I don't, because I want you to see the unfiltered mind of me. And it's not in a selfish way, but it's this is the fun stuff. Instead of, let's script this out like everybody, like a lot of other people in the space. No, we're going to rip, dude. And it's going to be fun. So the question, I will give you a little bit though. One thing that I've been kind of ping-ponging around in my head is it Kyler, Andrew Petzing, or neither after this season? And that's Petzing getting a head coaching job notwithstanding. Say the Cardinals make it to the NFC Championship game next year, Drew Petzing's going to be a hot name because the offense is obviously going to crush if they get there. But we're going to talk about that later. You mentioned a lot of things the Cardinals need. One of them was another weapon for Kyler. I'm going to disagree with you on that. Let's talk about it next. And why I think that offensive line is number one, even though they have multiple glaring issues on the defensive side of the ball. Alex Clancy, Donnie, Druin from Sports Illustrated joining me. We'll be right back. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our fans at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if they win their first $5 bet. So if you're looking to get in on the NFL action, there's never been a better time. Again, bet $5 for new customers. You get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. I mean, that's bananas. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Donnie, Druin, Sports Illustrated, joining me here. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Donnie, I am in the camp that if you can't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work. For people that don't think Kyler Murray's the guy, it's not the time for that conversation yet. This is in a vacuum. Protect the quarterback, win. Don't protect the quarterback, lose. We saw that first half, second half of the season where the offensive line just completely crumbled when playing at elite level before the bye week. I know Will Hernandez's injury had something to do with that. So offensive line for me, it's a deep offensive line draft. The Cardinals are picking at 16. You know that the Cardinals will be able to get a top 10 pick probably because of all the quarterbacks that are going to go up top. There's going to be wide receivers. There's going to be, Genti may go in the top 10. We have no idea. Drafts are weird. Do you think the offensive line is the number one priority, or are you more looking at the massive disparity on talent on the defensive line and the pass rush rooms?
I think right now, at least for me, edge might be the number one priority, but I think the gap between edge and maybe interior defensive line or offensive line, that gap is not very big. Like it's not like, I don't think it's a screaming like undoubtedly edge is the number one, and then everything else can just be like pushed to the side. Like I think that there's a lot of holes on this roster. Like you had mentioned, like Will Hernandez was hurt. He's also set to be a free agent. Starting left guard Evan Brown is also set to be a free agent. Jonah Williams is starting right tackle. Like who knows what he's going to look like if and when he comes back from injury. There's really it's Yaldi Froholt at center, Paris Johnson at left tackle. Both are very, very good. But that's about it. Just in terms of solidified pieces we know are going to be there for 2025 and beyond. I think offensive line, whenever you look at the Cardinals, isn't talked about enough. And it's not the sexy thing. It's not going to sell jerseys. Not that Marv is selling jerseys, but it's not going to sell jerseys or anything like that. But it's a very needed, kind of like you say all the time on the show, eat your vegetables. It's kind of something you have to do in order to be a good football team. I think sitting at number 16, you see it every year where top talent just falls. It just falls, like you said, for quarterbacks, receivers, whatever. Mel Kiper in his mock draft today had the Cardinals taking Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama, which I think would be a tremendous pick. Like you said, anything you can do to keep Kyler Murray upright and healthy, you need to do, because if he can't do that, nothing else matters. Literally nothing else matters. But also on the other end of that, if you do want to look at positional value, I think getting a suitable guard in either the later rounds of the draft or free agency is a lot easier than getting a suitable edge rusher whenever it comes to either the draft or free agency.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, it's something that you can never have too much offensive line help. And that's kind of where I'm thinking. And also and that makes sense. I mean, I know that, if you can get that bona fide pass rusher in the draft, economically speaking, it'll save you money in the long run for 5 years. And you look at the defense is so cheap to begin with. I mean, aside from Budda Baker, this is going to be a team that's going to be together for a long time, you'd hope. And with BJ Ojulari coming back, Darius Robinson hopefully will have some help, whether it be through free agency or otherwise. And because he didn't show much when he came back, but he wasn't in a position to succeed. You've got Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, who I know aren't super popular names, but they had played a lot of games consecutively before coming over here. So the fact that they both got hurt was more of the exception to the rule than the rule. And they were going to be rotational pieces anyways, even though they got paid a little bit more than that. But when you look at, Will Hernandez, I think they should re-sign. I don't know why people, with Budda Baker and James Conner, I got pushed back the entire offseason. It's dude, they're your dudes. Pay your dudes. And they both had great years. Will Hernandez is a dude. He's an Arizona Cardinal. He is a de facto honorable mention. I know he played with the Giants. I know he played elsewhere, but he's a Cardinal, and he's a mainstay on Yaldi Froholt's right side. So I do think, as you're right, a guard that can play center, you've got to look towards the future if Yaldi Froholt gets hurt. This can't be a Rodney Hudson, Max Garcia situation. So that's kind of where I'm more prone to look at it that way. I mean, Monty Osford is in a great position to trade back also. It seems like such a trade back spot. But
they could also trade up too. I think they're in a really good spot at 16 because talent's going to be pushed down to them at spot number 16. They're within striking distance if they feel like they need to move up into the top 10. And then, like you said, they can obviously trade back too. I think they're in a really, really good spot. I'm so intrigued to see what happens.
Yeah. And, it's one other thing, and then we'll pivot here to the coaches. But I was trying to de-pretzel my brain when thinking about free agency and the positions that the Cardinals need and what they'd be looking at in the draft. And it's like, I've seen so many, I call it the Nate Solder effect, so many offensive linemen go somewhere else, get paid all the money the King Midas has, and stink. And it's like, at least with pass rushers, you can get good situational pass rushers for a fraction of the price. And that's the Monty Austin Fort way. I'm sure he'll splash in some respects in free agency. I'd much rather them spend the free agent money on a pass rusher than an offensive lineman. Because if you hit on an offensive lineman in the draft, the margin for not good to average/good is a lot thinner than a pass rusher who's completely, non-existent. Look at Dallas Turner with Minnesota. He's a rotational piece, and they took him in the first round last year at Alabama. And that's an offense that's a defense that breeds pass rushers. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm bullish on it, but we're very early on. Do you think there's any other spot? Say they do pick at 16. Do you think it's going to be offensive line, pass rush, interior defensive line, and that's it?
I
go in a different position.
Corner might be in play. I do not think. I think if we had to rank those positions 1 through 4, I think corner is number 4. I don't think it's hey, we need to walk out of the draft early with another corner pick. I do think they like their rotation of Garrett Williams, who is so phenomenal. He does not get talked about enough on a national level. They seem to really like the progress of guys like Starling Thomas and then Max Melton too. I think Melton had a really good rookie season. Sean Murphy Bunting isn't the CB1 they wanted him to be. But he's a veteran in that room, I guess. But corner is one of those positions where you can never have enough talent at. You can never have enough talent, especially good top end talent. So if they added another corner, I would not be shocked. But I do think they should address positions such as defensive line, edge, and then offensive line before they think they look at a corner. But at that point, you're just drafting good football players, and I think that's the box people need to get themselves out of is. Don't worry about position. Don't worry about, hey, we need to walk out of the first 2 rounds with X, Y, or Z. Go get good football players, and normally good things will follow.
Yeah, especially with Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, their wizardry with putting the good players on the field, regardless of what their base is. It's the corners. It's crazy. After this past season, you look at the run game, you look at the tight end, and then you look at the secondary in the strength hierarchy, which is banana. It's bonkers to think that, from what we've witnessed with this team, with Patrick Peterson being on an island as a CB1 with no help for the majority of his career, and then they haven't had a bona fide CB1 and CB2 on the roster at the same time. When was the last time? 2014?
They thought they had that with Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson. They thought they had that.
Yeah, well, that Steve Keim, the ineptitude of Steve Keim thinking you can put in a 4th round rookie and be like, okay, kid, go get it. It's like what happened with Starling Thomas this last year. He's a CB2/3, and you can thrive in that role. Mm-hmm. And, if Max Melton can emerge, but I agree, if one of the top corners drops, it's at least you have a strength. At least you have a strength that you can set and forget every Sunday with veteran leadership that's unlike any other in the league with Budda Baker. So, the Cardinals are in an embarrassment of riches spot at 16 with the options they have, not only position-wise, but trade up and trade back. So it'll be fascinating to see. Now, the coaches, Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing, Nick Rallis, where are they? Let's do a barometer check. There's a lot of coaching carousels, a lot of bad coaches in the NFL. Where do the Cardinals coaches stack up? We'll discuss it next. Donnie, Druin, Sports Illustrated, joining me. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. Can help manage stress, improve sleep, communicate more effectively, everything. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge, and that's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. And with Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. All right. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. It's going to be so fun. We finally have an offseason, like selfishly. I like to pepper in when the Cardinals are doing well. It's like, who deserves this the most? The media members.
Yes.
The people
1,000%.
who are on the grind. Like, of course, fans, naturally. But it's like,
right.
I just, so Ken Summers is somebody I looked up to for a long time in this space. If for those who don't know, he covered the Cardinals and in Arizona sports for like 40 years. And he retired, I don't know, 18 months ago or something. Like, imagine being on the grind since, Sun Devil Stadium days, and it's just losing and losing and losing and losing. And every day putting out great content, great articles, interviews, like everything like. So anyways, this offseason is for the media members too. Okay.
Because I agree. I was the last home game, I was sitting with a friend of the podcast, Bo Brock, and we were talking about how it was like a really fun season to cover. And I'm like, look, man, like we spent Christmas watching Trace McSorley play Tom Brady. Like, I think we kind of deserve this.
That's right. I totally forgot about the Trace days. Northwestern legend. Yeah, dude, it's they've got the money, they got the picks. All they've got, like, one thing that I said after the first draft, I think it was, for Monty Osborne, it's like, now the restrictor plate is off the organization. Now they've got possibilities, which is something they didn't have before. So it kind of craters belief that things can change when you've got this huge deterrent from that, which was shown time and time again with the last regime. So now they've got opportunities. They've got somebody who's nailed 2 drafts. I think that's fair to say, at least with the future pacing look of them. And he hired these 3 coaches: Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing, Nick Rallis. I think it's safe to say Nick Rallis has emerged as a wunderkind at 31 or whatever he is on the defensive side of the ball. I throw Jerk once in a while. Wunderkind.
Okay.
Well, I took it from
Can you use that in a sentence?
From Ted Lasso.
Country of origin?
No. Country of origin? Yeah, use it in a sentence. I just did. Nick Rallis is he's a kid. He's fantastic. He sees outside the box. Him and Jonathan Gannon work very well together. The players obviously receive him very well. And I would say the same about Drew Petzing. Like, with the coaching carousel going on, 2 years in, even with Kyler missing the first half of the first year, where would you give a letter grade? What would a letter grade be for these guys through 34 games?
Oh man, that's so tough, because I think you've watched this team and this coaching staff just overall as a whole kind of bloom like a sunflower over the last 2 years, man. Like it's been really, really cool to see them take that step from year 1 to year 2. And granted, like the collapse in the second half of the year, that can't happen again. That needs to change. But like if you're able to just like see the big picture in a vacuum, progress was made. Progress was definitely made since the moment they walked through the door. And I think that's really encouraging. Are you asking me like overall grades? Like, do you want like individual grades for them?
Just like as a trio, 3 guys who had never held the roles that they've held. I'm not going to audit this. Just kind of like a kind of a barometer.
C being an average. I'd probably go C+ given for everything. And I know that's not a great looking grade on paper. But like you have to be encouraged by like the progress, but you also need to see that like, hey, like there's still some leaps and bounds that need to be seen. I think the job that Nick Rallis did during the second half of the year, because going into 2024, there was this overall feeling of, man, like these guys, like they're going to need to put up 30 every week to win these football games if the Cardinals are going to be this like perennial playoff contender. You watch that defense go from a team that did not blitz very much, a team who did not get after the quarterback very much, to, okay, now Nick Rallis is dialing pressures up like he's Spagnuolo, like he's Flores. Like he's getting really creative, really exotic with these looks, and it's working. They're getting to the quarterback. They're pressuring them. The defense was arguably like the strength of the team for a good stretch of the season, which is something I did not think I was going to say for this 2024 Cardinals team. I really like the job he did. Petzing's so funny because when the Cardinals are humming, nobody really likes to like give him credit. But the moment it goes bad, it's Drew, what are you doing? Drew, get your head out of here. What are we doing? And like to the point you brought up earlier, Alex, I don't know if it's a Kyler thing. I don't know if it's a Drew Petzing thing. Like, I don't really know where to assign blame for what happened. I don't know. I don't know what shoulders should burden that. Gannon is very much a CEO kind of head coach. I don't think he's super. I don't think he's overly involved in the process. I think he very much trusts his guys to do their job. I think that's helped a lot, and I also think that's hindered them a little bit too. Overall, I think C+ is probably a good grade. Man, it's just I do not know. I feel like a B- would probably be acceptable too. I'm not going to give grades for something they haven't earned though.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, and that's good. It's something definitely puts things into perspective. The Drew Petzing Kyler Murray thing's fascinating because we're going to know the Band-Aid's going to be ripped off in 2025 one way or the other. So let me hit on everything you said. So with Jonathan Gannon, there's no moment that he's looks overwhelmed, which is nice. He's a calming presence. And he may be too calming to the point of conservative makes you want to fall asleep, but like he's a calming. Nothing's too big for him, or at least he doesn't convey that.
Well, I like how like he's very like stoic on the sideline when he needs to be, but like he'll get amped with the players too. Like he will show emotion.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying emotion. I'm just saying
but it's never like. It's never like he's never going to like throw his guys under the bus or like get like visibly upset to the point where like it's impacting the other team. Like I think he does a very good job of knowing that there's 53 players on that sideline and an entire coaching staff looking and watching at his every move, and he conducts himself as such.
Yeah, no, agreed. And he obviously has room to grow. They've been very conservative on fourth down. That was one of the biggest things going into the season. I was like, I'm fascinated to see what their fourth down philosophy is going to be with a defense with what we thought was going to be with two hands tied behind their back talent-wise with no pass rushing. BJ Ojulari out for the year and a young secondary. But you're right, like pivoting to Nick Rallis, that was such a having a feared secondary that needs to be schemed around by opposing offenses. That's something the Cardinals just haven't had for a very long time. And the fact that they're so ahead of the curve with that is incredible, compounded by the fact they had no help with the pass rush all year. So it's a bunch of young guys who have no help. They've got to cover probably for 2 more seconds than any team that has a pass rush has to. You got Dadrian Taylor-Demerson coming in immediately and supplanting Jalen Thompson. You'd think that Jalen Thompson may be one on the move this offseason. If Dadrian Taylor-Demerson is the guy for the future, him and Budda Baker would be one of the feared duos from a hitting perspective in the NFL. So, but it starts and ends with Drew Petzing because it's Kyler Murray, because he's the franchise guy, because he's making the money, because of all of it. The only grace that I would give Drew Petzing in this is, and I think we've talked about this, I don't know if it was on or off camera, is Marvin Harrison Jr. is like an atomic bomb for his style of offense. Like, it's not fit for a wide receiver one to get 12 targets a game. It's run the ball, it's tight end, it's play action, it's find an open receiver. Like, it's difficult, and it's a great problem to have if you can figure it out. But the 0-1 jump hasn't happened yet. And it needs to happen this offseason and be ready for week 1, or we're going to be having conversations mid-season about Mark. And it's not that he was drafted number 4 overall. It's not that he's this great talent. It's none of that. It's something that just needs to be fixed. As you mentioned, Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing, Kyler Murray just got to get in. That should be the number one concern this offseason is how do you get these wide receivers open for more touches? It doesn't even matter that it's Marv. It's Michael Wilson. It's Greg Dortch. It's like we have the conversation about Greg Dortch in the preseason and in the postseason. Why didn't they get him involved more? Because whenever they do, he produces. And that's a Kyler Murray and Drew Petzing thing that needs to be figured out, or both of them may not be Arizona Cardinals in 2026. And I think that's something going into year 7, like it makes you want to throw up. It's like these conversations, while I still think Kyler Murray can be that guy for more than 5 games a year, now there's no smokescreen. There's nothing. It either is going to happen or they're both looking for jobs elsewhere. Is that fair to say? Like, it's not an ultimatum. It's like, how much more catered does it need to get before a quarterback produces in a set and forget manner without having to worry about it every series, whether it's going to be elite or bottom dwelling in the league?
No, I would agree. I would agree more so on Drew maybe not having a job in 2026. The Cardinals love Kyler, man. The Cardinals love Kyler Murray. But that being said, I think you hit the nail on the head because like there's not going to be any excuses. Like Kyler has the weapons. He has another year in Drew Petzing's system. He's fully healthy moving into a second year. We're going to find out very, very quick what exactly was holding the Cardinals back last year, and if that's still going to be the case in 2025. Like unfortunately, time is only going to be the one thing that like really reveals itself and all of the things that reared its ugly head in the second half collapse that the Cardinals had. But they just got to figure it out. And like to the Marvin Harrison Jr. point too, man, like can we stop treating him like he's Calvin Johnson? Like he's 6'4", but he's not this like big 50-50 ball guy. Like he's a polished, his name's Maserati, not Megatron. He gets in and out of breaks very nice. He creates separation. He's good at getting open. I think he shook the early season jitters. I think after he hit the rookie wall, like he's going to be fine heading into year 2. Treat him like Marvin Harrison Jr. and not like Calvin Johnson, because like he's not the guy to be throwing 50-50 balls to. But also on the other side of the token, you need to open up the offense more. You need to push the ball down the field. Your offense is way too talented, especially for as good as you run the football, for as much as you want to set that up through play action. There should be plenty of opportunities to catch defenses just a little bit napping and try to push the ball over the top. I mean, Michael Wilson is a tremendous contested catch guy. Yeah. Marvin Harrison Jr. should be able to get open down the field. Like it should not be that hard.
And Kyler throws a beautiful deep ball.
Yep.
So it's just like, and they don't have to be 50-50 balls. The scripted element just needs to be a little bit looser than what we've seen. And I think both you and I agree. Follow him on Donnie Druin. Tell them where they can find your work.
Yeah, SI.com/NFL/Cardinals.
Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.